Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer. It's Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day recap for Monday, June 24th. Well, I think you can pretty much classify today as the big R word, rotation. Follow through, obviously, from what we had last week with quadruple witching or triple witching, as people like to call it now, but index rebalancing that could really shake things up. And of course, as we're kind of headed into this week, we know that the seasonality is pretty weak for the last week of June. But one of the things, as we went over in Friday's video, is that if you can get through the last week of June, the month of July is particularly strong seasonally. So I think what we saw today was exactly that, and a lot of rotation on the tape. Also, to kind of go back to where we were a couple of weeks ago, where it was basically just tech, just the semis, a little bit of software, a little bit of consumer discretionary participating in this market. And we knew that that wasn't sustainable. We knew that either like one of two things were basically going to happen there is either that the breadth was just going to continue to get more narrow, and eventually the market would sell off on that because that's just not sustainable. Or number two is you might just see other areas of the markets begin to participate and breadth increase. That's what we had today. However, you kind of have to think about all the pieces of the puzzle, right? It's not just going to be financials and energy go up. It's going to be rotation out of some of those areas that have been the high performers. Overall, I don't think that there's really anything wrong with this price action. In the short term, it's a bit painful, depending on what you're in and what you want to stay in, right? Some people just want to be in growth names, right? And the funny thing about this is some people don't mind at all when the breadth is really narrow, as long as it's in their names, right? And I didn't see, for people that are really concentrated in high growth, they didn't really care too much about the breadth because it was there was plenty of names that were going up in those select small areas of the market. Another point to make too, and by the way, risk disclaimer is in front of you. Everything that we're talking about is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Another thing, if you look at what the averages did today, the Qs were down 1.3%. SPY was basically flat all day until like the last 20 minutes of the day, but that finished down on the day. But when you're dealing with a softer, when the bigger sectors are, see if I can bring this up, if I can remember what the code is for this. But when the bigger sectors, such as tech, which is about 29% of the market, right? You can see right the weight, sorry. It's more than that at this point. It's 32% of the market. When tech goes down, odds are the market's going to be down for the day, right? And XLK was down, what was it? Down 2.6% today. It's very difficult for the market to be positive on a day where tech is down 2.6% just because of the math, right? And the S&P. But overall, take a look at what went up today. I mean, there were a decent amount of sectors that were up over 1%. Biotech had a really good day. There was a drug announcement in that space, which brought the group up. And then energy was very strong. I mean, it was one of the things that was really odd to me last week. We were noting that how strong the crude price was, but energy stocks were just not following. And it just ended up being a matter of time for that whole group. So let's go through, we can kind of start with some of the bigger names, and I'm going to start with the Q's chart. One of the things that I said coming into today was that, Q's kind of just slipped below that 5-period moving average, right? That's usually a warning signal. When you've got momentum like this, price staying above the 5-period moving average, and you lose it, right? You usually just it's usually an indicator, right? It's an indicator that breadth, sorry, not breadth, but momentum is waning, and certainly that happened. Now, again, we didn't know exactly what kind of day we were going to get, and one of the things that we reviewed in the weekend video was looking at these at the 1-hour value area. If I can bring this up, let's see what's going on here. It looks like I've got a frozen screen. But the 1-hour value really kind of gave a nice indication of that. Let's see if I can let's just try this again, and we'll do Let me switch off Dale. All right, so I had a little problem there with TradingView, so I will use Thinkorswim here. But basically, same thing. We started today just inside the value area, and we knew if we broke this 478, it wasn't going to be great. And that was your short signal. We talked about how on Friday we held the top of value, but this week would be a whole new week. So spill lower now. One thing that's positive with this, right? And again, I stated this in the weekend video. If this week gets a little bit weak, it's going to shake all the hot money, out of stocks, right? So of course, the big guy, NVIDIA, right? Look at what happened with this name today, and just follow through. Right. And it's a very important note when something has, just like when we were looking with the Qs, it had the reversal day. I have this on in full disclosure. I have this on in the TTG trend portfolio, which is longer term focused. But I also have this in my trading account, and I sold this at 140 and I sold that 135. And I said, that's it for now. Let's see what it does. And since then, there really just hasn't been any need to get back into it, right? If you want to put out a feeler and start to kind of scale in a little bit, I don't think that there's anything really wrong with that. But in terms of a signal, right? We took out this, same thing with the Qs. We started just inside the value area. We broke it. We took out this virgin point of control, right? And always the virgin point of control is, or these virgin point of control, right, is going to be a battle of the buyers and the sellers. In this case, the sellers won out. Now there's another VPOC down here at right around 114. That could be where buyers step back in, right, after getting out of this name. So I think that's going to be interesting. And again, no rush, right? And you have to remember too with NVIDIA, right? I heard somebody talking about this earlier too, but this name can consolidate for a long time. But yes, this is pretty heavy selling pressure. There was big volume on this day and follow through, but we've seen this before. Even remember before, after this was back in March, right? The stock really didn't do anything for 2 months, right? People forget that the stock can go sideways for a while. So this is a break of the 20-day moving average, right? I know a lot of people look at that 20-day moving average or 21-day moving average, right? But if it doesn't stop there, right, then you kind of have to just reassess a bit. So I'm watching to see what happens if this thing kind of continues to go lower around 114, right? That would be a level for me. Again, reminder that we're only going to have one more, we've got less than a week now of June, and then we'll be on to July, but we'll see what happens where this you can see this is a developing value area, so we don't know where that's going to line up as well for next month yet, because right now that bottom of value is 117, but that might change some as it's the price action is based on all of this month's activity, and we still have more activity to go. TradingView is working again, so let me try doing this again. Maybe they had a little glitch there, but similar here, not the same, but it also, right up until like the last 30 minutes of the day, this was holding the 5-day moving average, but this did slip below, right? So I would say, the 20-day moving average is all the way down here, right? And that could be a little bit of a gap fill. All right, sorry, I had to sneeze there, and I tried to pause the recording, but I don't think I did it successfully. So let me just finish thoughts here. So break of the value area, right? And this again was holding on here until the end of the day, but this did break, and we also took out a downside VPOC. So we'll just have to see if this entices some buyers to come in. I think the S&P right now, even though this is kind of a head and shoulder looking pattern, is a bit stronger. Again, looking at the sectors right now, because some areas were kind of unaffected, right? So if you look at XLF today, for the month, it did not close on the highs of the day, but still looking pretty decently. XLE finally kind of turned the corner there. Now it's going to have some resistance to get through. But it did get back above the 2024 value area. So this yellow box is the value area for the year, and this box up here is the value area for the month. So right into some resistance, and we'll see how that goes with energy stocks. Other names, their healthcare did pretty good. Look at Merck is trying to break out here, right? That's a pretty good looking chart for tomorrow. Also Goldman, which I bought a little bit of Goldman today. Really nice looking candle there. So again, just very odd with this market. It was so dominated by tech for a good couple of weeks that, this rotation is, I think, is fairly healthy. Another area that I was talking about even last week was garbage stocks, and look at, I mean, these things went up decently today. Here's RSG, here's CLH. All these charts look pretty good. Now, CLH did not close on the highs, but I'm also long some waste management in the TTG trend portfolio. Look at waste management go. So, it's not to say that other things are not going up, but you just have to be a little bit creative with what you're doing here, because again, these names is it is what it is. People will need to, it's a nice little play, I think, garbage stocks. And especially when you look at all of them and they're all going up, right? It kind of tells you something like that. So I remain in RSG. By the way, I did take some profits. If you watch Friday's video, I'd put on a hedge in the Qs, right? I put on the this week's 477, 470 put spread. I put that on for $1.60. I talked about that in Friday's video, how that had pretty good risk to reward. I was able to take some off. I took a couple targets in that trade over the session, but I took some off at 280, right? And I have a small balance left just in case we see more downside. In my trading today, I got stopped out. It's tricky. Anything in tech is kind of doing, well, I don't want to say anything, but most of names like this. I just took this name off and just will start again, but I don't like to get fooled like that in the beginning of the day. I've talked about, I mentioned when I got into this name, I said, just keep in mind, it's very tricky getting into a trade in the first 10 minutes of the day because you just don't know what kind of a day you're going to get. But we'll be watching that one for tomorrow. Also, I tried a little bit of Uber today, but I bailed on the trade. Um, let's see where it ended up closing. I mean, again, tricky, right? Look at where this thing closed right at the top of value. So again, we'll watch these names tomorrow. All right, guys, I'm going to keep it fairly short in today's video. CAMT, I do begin to kind of look through some of these names. I really like this pullback to the 20-day moving average in CAMT. One thing I don't like is the pickup in volume. So again, it just tells me heavy distribution, right? Sometimes you see these low volume pullbacks, but this one is a pretty high volume pullback. But again, that's another one that I'll be watching for tomorrow. Also, things like Arista Networks, which I think just pulled back. These things are just pulling back to some support. So I think your stronger names will hold up a little bit better. All right, guys, that is it for tonight's recap. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.